5, 9, 15.
Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Leila Mottley. I turned 20 in 2 days, and I'm a novelist. I wrote Nightcrawling when I was almost 17. I started it, and then I finished it when I was 17. And a lot of people, when they first meet me, are shocked at how young I am. And the most common question I get is, how did you do it? So here today, I am here to talk to you a little bit about how I became a writer and about young people and the arts. So I have been reading and writing since I learned how to. When I was 5, I wrote my first poem. When I was 7, I wrote my first short story. And I have always been an artist, a creative, someone who loves words and writing and language. And I think I contribute part of that to growing up around books that really reflected me, and being the daughter of a father who was also a writer. He was a playwright, and while he never made any money or anything off of his work, he loved it, and he would come home every night after his day job, and he would start clacking on his computer. And I think that definitely taught me that writing and art was legitimate pursuit that could be done for passion, even if it wasn't your career. So I think that often people have ideas about what young people can do, and the ideas that we have and in our pursuits and passions that don't ever measure up to the people that I know and that I've met in my life. And I think that a huge part of that is because so many of us grow up and we get removed from our childhood and our adolescence, and we get told that we need to choose more practical pursuits, and we steer away from any art that we may have done when were younger. And I think part of the reason that I have gone into writing and pursued it so vigorously is because I was surrounded by a community, and an arts community that was strong and vibrant and full of young people. So I was born and raised in Oakland, California, and that's still where I live today. And if you know anything about Oakland, it is a community that has the most thriving arts scene of any place that I've ever been. From local talents like drummer boy Aaron, who is this young Black man who goes to the corner of a park every weekend and plays his drums, to big names that have come out of Oakland and gone on to Hollywood, like Zendaya and Kehlani, both of whom went to my middle school and high school. So when I was in 6th grade, I decided I wanted to go to Oakland School for the Arts, which is a charter school within our public school system that entirely focuses on the arts and creativity. And when I went to attend Oakland School for the Arts, I started in the theater program. And I was in the theater program for 3 years, and I spent 2 hours every day doing my art, just like everyone else, even in different departments. And then after school, I would often be in rehearsals. And then in high school, I decided to switch over to the literary arts department, which was essentially a program where I got to write for 3 hours a day, every day, during all of high school. And I think what's important about this is it encouraged a dedication and a practice to art from such a young age that I think a lot of us don't get, particularly in high school, when many of us are told it's time to start looking towards career or more practical pursuits. But what I found out and what I learned through going to my high school and being in the arts scene in Oakland was that there were thousands of other young people who were just as talented, if not more so, who had these huge ideas and and big dreams, and who were dedicated enough and persistent enough to chase them. And I think that there's an idea among so many of us that young people are lazy and don't have as much going on as we do. And I think it's important that we put in context why young people grow up and leave the arts, because that kind of teaching, that kind of socialization to think that we aren't special, and that we are not going to be able to achieve our dreams, is the reason that so many of us give up on things that we love. So when I was in high school, I wrote my first novel at the age of 14. And that was because we were encouraged in my arts program to try NaNoWriMo, which is National Novel Writing Month. And National Novel Writing Month is exactly what it sounds like, where you write a novel in 1 month. And some of us did it and some of us didn't. And that was my introduction to novel writing. And then I wrote my next novel on my own time at 15. And then I wrote my third novel, Nightcrawling, at a month before I turned 17. I started writing it, and I knew that I wanted to tell the story of young Black girls in Oakland who are vulnerable and whole people, and who get to have narrative control where we often don't. And I think what was so important was that I was 17 at the time, and I was able to really write from a 17-year-old's perspective without the judgment and distancing that happens when we're removed from adolescence. And so I wrote this book, and when I started writing it, I was also the Oakland Youth Poet Laureate. So when I was 16, I became the Oakland Youth Poet Laureate. And that essentially meant that I traveled around the Bay Area performing poetry and running writing workshops. And what I learned from this was that no matter what school I was going into, no matter what group of kids or what background they were from, they all had immense talent and ideas that no one had ever asked them to share. And I think it's really important that as people, especially as adults, that we look to young people and acknowledge that they have more happening inside their heads than we might often validate or even give space to. So I ran a series of workshops called Growing Up Oakland that essentially gave time and space for young people to document and archive what it meant to be growing up in Oakland at the time. And I think from that, a lot of young people were given the space in which they could speak to their experiences without judgment or shame, and through art. And I think that is one of the most essential things that a young person can do, is give themselves full credit for their experience in the moment. So my novel Nightcrawling features several young people who are artists or have these passions. And it was important for me to showcase how young people find joy and express creativity through arts and hobbies. And so Kiara, the main character, she is a painter and a muralist, and she does graffiti. And through all of these things, she's able to achieve a lightness and a joy and a delight that she really isn't able to access in other parts of her life. Her brother Marcus is a rapper, and while he's not very good at it, it does provide him an ability to pursue something that gives him hope for his future and faith that he has more than what the world might expect or want from him. And then Kiara's friend Ale and neighbor Trevor. Ale is a skateboarder and Trevor plays basketball. And I think these kind of physical releases and hobbies are also akin to art, because they focus first on how we feel and on expression and on allowing us the freedom to put our joy and our experiences first. And I think as adults, we often give up on our passions or our hobbies because they don't necessarily do something practical for us. But one of the most important things in being alive is being able to find hope and to find joy. So I am going to read you a short passage from Nightcrawling about art. When I paint, I close my eyes. Marcus and Ale both laugh when I do this. They think you gotta see to paint, but sight is just a distraction from what it really takes to translate image to art. I let it flow out my fingers, escape out my breath, and I don't need to see when my body is an entire vision. I've been tagging since I was 13. Back then, I wouldn't have even called it tagging because I just had some Sharpies and a will to have my name on every block. Then, Ale bought me a can of blue spray paint for my 14th birthday, and I spent a month going wild with it before I shook it one day and it was empty. It became a tradition, a new color for every birthday since. Marcus was the one who took me on bike rides and told me that there really ain't no difference between the murals and swirling tags we'd pass. That art is the way we imprint ourselves onto the world, so there is no way to erase us. He says that's what his lyrics are for. And I think Chiara says it best, this sentiment that art is the way that we imprint ourselves on this world. And I think it's incredibly important and essential to give young people access to the arts because it is a powerful tool for transformation and allows us to express the particular truths of childhood and adolescence that we often leave behind. Thank you.